right, welcome back. This is Anime Vitality with Austin,
Jett.
and today we are going to be drinking some Guang Bai. It's a white tea, and we are talking about Wonder Egg Priority. So, you want to take it off?
Yeah, so episode 1 really starts with our MC, wandering the streets late at night. She stumbles upon looks like a dead firefly, and she takes it and decides to have a burial for it. And then she's praying at the shrine for a second, it looks like. Firefly is like resurrected and starts talking to her in this ominous yet satisfying voice. Leads her to an escalator.
Offering like exactly what you want.
Exactly what you want. So she goes down there. She falls through this like tunnel, Alice in Wonderland style almost. Mm-hmm. And then she ends up waking up with an egg like in her bed, just a regular egg in her bed. So that was pretty interesting. At that point, I was kind of like, what's going on? I didn't really know what to expect. So she's pondering throughout the day. There's just kind of different scenes of brushing her teeth, looking at it, and it's definitely on her mind, obviously, as it would be.
Yeah.
And then so eventually, it's late at night. She's in her bed, and she just starts thinking like she's gonna sneak out. So she puts on her classic yellow coat that she always has.
I love that hoodie.
I know, I love that, and puts the hood over her head, ties it tight. She's sneaking out. She's closing the door behind her, turns around, and realizes that she's in her school. Mm-hmm. And so she's kind of just looking around, walking. She's curious as to why she's there. And then so we see what look like two girls drawing what looks like dye, I believe, on a locker. So, and at this point, I was like, okay, so here we are now. This is a horror anime, and
this is a delve into her experience in being bullied for her heterochromia and a kind of a cheeky little thing that they did because the school definitely turned a blind eye to her bullying, but they call the little red creatures that are chasing them throughout the series see no evils. Really clever. But yeah, this is definitely a look into maybe a personification of how it feels to be at school.
Yeah. And so starts panicking. She escapes to the bathroom, slams the door behind her.
And then this is weird because the toilet paper like forms a mouth and it's like break the egg.
Yeah, and so it's telling her, and it's in that same voice as that the firefly it seemed to be. She's like, break the egg. So she's confused. She just launches it at the wall. Crack. She's looking at it for a second, and then it just starts expanding.
And then this red-haired girl cracks.
Yeah. Out of it. Boom! It like pops. This redhead girl is just laying on the bathroom floor. Mm-hmm. She gets up and kind of starts talking to her.
And at this point, I just couldn't help but think to myself, like, this show's gonna be weird. First impressions, weird.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was intrigued, but I just did not. I was like, where are we gonna go from here? Super interesting start. And I was just like, where is this gonna take us? Mm-hmm. So, Red, a rude and brash character, urges I to run. Witnessing a student with a censored face, I thought that was interesting. I didn't know how I felt about it.
It seems like they kind of deviated from that. I thought that throughout the show, the Wonder Killers would have that same like motif of like a person with the censored face, but it ended up not going that direction. But
a super different direction, yeah. So they're running. They're getting chased by these see no evils, as well as the student who's creepy laugh and has two hatchets.
Yeah.
She actually launches one at Red and gets her an arm.
Really good.
Yeah. So they're running. They end up escaping through a locker. I and Red have a more sincere interaction. Red disappears as more see no evils emerge. Mm-hmm. So I also got kind of wounded in that scuffle.
She's like, "Is this where my liver is?"
Yeah. So she's you can see like her blood coming from the side, and so
And at this point, we get our first taste into Ai and Kaito's relationship together. Kind of a sad suicide. Initially, we'll debunk that later as we get the full story on it. But it seemed to be a very tragic suicide. She just like flung herself off the roof.
And this is Ai's. We learned that this is Ai's first.
Yeah,
and only best friend for that matter, really. So, music was sweet.
Really cool. It's interesting, like dubstep, kind of like Rocket League-esque, like very high intensity, very energetic, fast tempo. And the art style was cool. I like all the paint splatters and...
Yeah. And so, so it was at this point, I was pretty surprised because, so they get to the roof, right? This is at this point that they get to the roof and, so they're separated. They ended up getting, so I guess it's Ai that goes to the roof. And we don't really know where Red had gone.
And she finds herself she ends up seeing Red cornered on the roof, and she has to make like a running jump to get her.
And we see a little bit of she starts talking. I starts talking herself up, and she makes this just crazy Olympic gold medalist leap to the, which was really cool. And then so it's at this point that the pin she had grabbed, that pink pin that she had grabbed, turns giant.
Looks like a giant mate. It reminds me of like a Keyblade in Kingdom Hearts.
That's what I was thinking. I thought it was
pretty cool.
I thought the exact same thing. I was like, is she holding a Keyblade? Yeah, so that was sweet. And then she just, as Red's getting cornered, eyes in the air, flying through the air, and just smashes this new weapon into that, what we learn are called
Wonder Killers.
Wonder Killers.
Hitting us with her iconic, and now I'm getting angry.
Now I'm... which I thought was pretty funny. But anyway, so smashes that Wonder Killer. And I was almost like, whoa. It's like... there were several times throughout this whole anime, I was thinking, the fight scenes have no business being this sweet.
I know.
The color gradient, it was just... That scene was really cool. Anyway, so Ai smashes the Wonder Killer. She explodes. And then Red goes up to her, thanks her, and then poof, just kind of disintegrates.
And we get a taste into their purpose in going into the egg world, in that they have a statue representation of the person that they're really wanting to bring back, which is Kaito. And I saw it as kind of like helping these spirits pass on.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And as they continue to do these things, these statues gain more realistic characteristics, like they start to feel warmer and things of that nature.
So obviously that leads Ai to believe, if I save more of these people from the Wonder Eggs, then will I be able to bring Kaito back?
And she leaves, and another interesting thing we learn about this world is you're almost a god there. You regenerate.
You're immortal. So the Ai who enters this place is immortal. However, the people in the eggs are not. But there's a catch-22. We learn because whenever I woke up the next morning, was eating breakfast with her.
She passed out from her wound.
Yeah, she's kind of gets woozy and passes out from her. So that's a real interesting dynamic there. Is that
I wish they played on it more.
Yeah, I wish they would have played on it more too. It was cool to see. Honestly, the fight scene was really cool, and the color, it just looked so good. The animation and the art are incredible. It just looks so good.
It really is. And then at the end of this episode, we get our first glimpse of another main character, Nehru, and she's got a suitcase full of eggs. She's just hoarding them. And I'm just like, what's going on?
I really liked the, as we're introduced to Nauru, the garden that they always meet up at, kind of.
Aka's house.
Yeah. Aka and was it Uraka?
Uraka, yeah.
So, yeah, just really cool and interesting, different, kind of all stuff going on there.
Yeah, interesting first impression with this anime. I mean, I feel like more often than not, the first episode you're kind of just like, what's happening here?
Oh, yeah.
You're either confused or it's slow and you wish you were confused.
It got right into it, though. Jumped right in, so.
So, I and Nehru have a dialogue on kind of the reason they're there and doing this whole gauntlet with their Wonder Eggs. And Nehru and I swap numbers initially so Nehru can not run into her again.
Yeah.
She's like, you go on even days, I'll go on odd, or vice versa.
Yeah.
That way I don't have to see you again.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which was cold. And that's kind of, first impression is really her character. She's very cold and calculated, very emotionally detached.
Absolutely, yeah.
But they almost immediately after the realization that and this was kind of funny because we're back in the egg world, but it kind of clicks to I that if I protect these eggs, nothing bad happens. And then the egg rolls off like the table and breaks, and the see no evils just like flood in, which is kind of funny. And
so they get these eggs from like the like a vending machine, not a vending machine. So the first time was free, right? And then
the first one's on us.
Yeah, like the Firefly, whenever it's leading there, is like the first one will be free. Next time, bring your wallet. So it's like like you'd put the coin in like a gumball machine almost.
Yeah.
Whatever I don't really know what else
like
to
a
call those.
gachapon.
Yeah, and then boom, egg falls out, and it was funny seeing Nera, who had just a suitcase full of them.
Yeah, she came with her wallet. And at this point now, I kind of catching on to the rhyme and rhythm of this. She starts navigating the halls with her next spirit, which her name ended up being Minami, through the halls and narrowly avoiding the see no evils. I learns the purpose is to keep the spirit alive while defeating the Wonder Killer. So now we have kind of a pretty predictable flow throughout the rest of the series. And I thought the Wonder Killers were an interesting addition to the story.
It was so strange. Obviously Red's Wonder Killer was a student, it looked like, with the blurred out face, and then
they started getting pretty abstract.
Yeah, and now so Minami, it looked like her Wonder Killer was also started off humanoid form, right? As like it was her trainer.
Her design was kind of
before. So it started off humanoid form, and then took a left.
Looked like a weird elephant with like giant cannons.
Yeah. And that was another strange thing because obviously it's super colorful. Like she's super colorful. Then she was like spraying,
through her cannons.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's lots of color, and it's an interesting take on confronting the things and the people that have brought trauma in your life. And so back to the situation, the Wonder Killer blasts down the door, and like you were saying, she starts off humanoid censored face like the last one, and then she has this like, it looked like a weird reverse birth. And she took a metamorphosis at this point, and I ends up standing up for Minami, and she takes a wicked beating, and she's getting knocked around the gymnasium, and I realizes, kind of like her pin, if she holds on to Minami's ribbon, similar effect, which was pretty cool. It was like a laser whip.
Yeah, so Minami ended up, she was a
gymnast?
A gymnast, yes. She was a gymnast. She was wearing a leotard, and the Wonder Killer was... Her coach, we find out, because Minami's calling her coach. And so at this point, did you kind of realize, like, that, like this person, this Wonder Killer is connected to the the person in the egg somehow, it seemed.
I started to kind of gather it. It was really the second episode where I was like, okay, she has to deal with her coach to pass on. So, and I kind of this show gets pretty deep and it really touches on some things that I think are really cool to see in an anime, but I has an interesting dialogue on what people will go through to receive attention from someone they look up to or to feel loved from someone they look up to. And she really went through it for that with her coach.
Oh, yeah.
And another kind of sad moment is she ends up taking out the Wonder Killer. And like Red, Minami, they both ask her, like, hey, can you think of me sometimes? And then poof.
Yes.
That was kind of sad. But I still just didn't really know what to think at this point about what's going on, what to expect. They did a good job of kind of holding their cards to their chest in this series, but we're back at Akka's house, and Akka and Uraka are at the egg dispenser, and they note Ai's prudence with the eggs versus Neru's overzealous choices. And since Neru loaded up on the eggs, she ended up in the hospital because she couldn't handle it.
Right, and then I think it was at this point I asked, is she doing that to bring back her statue? Whoever that is, it was her sister, but then she's kind of like, if we is this an effective way to do this in a more timely manner by loading up on eggs and break, Also, what did you think? What did you think the first time you saw Akka and Uraka?
Interesting character designs. Kind of funny because I realized eventually that their little triangle was a light and they're kind of robotic. But whenever they were talking, I first thought their mouths like flapped, like fabric flapping. So interesting. I like that they make fun of that they're in dummies. They're like, later on in the show, they're like, we used to be humans, but now we're just a couple of dummies.
Yeah, we used to be like scientific geniuses, and now we're just a couple of dummies. Yeah.
Literally. But
I really liked that setting, like their garden, and then where the dispenser was, and I don't know, I was happy every time I went there. It was just a cool place. It really was extremely visually pleasing.
And they're always playing like Go with each other or something.
Just super visually pleasing. So now it's at this point another new character, another girl, Rika. She's introduced,
which was another thing. I don't think besides like Akka and Uraka there are any guys in this series. Well, except for the teacher, or sensei, senpai.
Yeah, senpai. So Rika's introduced. So Ai is really kind of a shut-in, shy, and then Neru is
opposite. She was a junior idol, so very outgoing, very about being around people.
Oh yeah, it's Rika.
Rika, yeah.
But Neru was pretty like cold.
Oh, yeah.
Also, she could care less to talk to anybody. And
she doesn't understand emotions.
Yeah. And now finally Rika is like you said, junior idol, bubbly kind of, outgoing. Yeah. So brash. Okay, so we're introduced to Rika. Her weapon is interesting. It's
like double razors.
Yeah, like those double blades.
Kind of like Kill la Kill with like the scissors.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are cool. Rika and I so they're introduced at the egg dispenser. Viral idea.
It made me cringe so hard.
Yeah.
She grows on me. Originally I did not like Rika. I was like, I'm gonna have to deal with this for the rest of the series.
In which she says, can you buy this? She's like, they didn't tell me that the next one was gonna be you had to pay for it. I forgot my wallet at home. Can you spot me? So Neru and Ai's relationship seems to be improving slowly but surely. The more Rika talks, the less. So you didn't really care for her at first.
The more she talked in the beginning, I was like, I hate how she talks.
Yeah.
I don't like her attitude. But
she did. So she was definitely like kind of immediately clung to Ai, following around like a lost puppy. So we learned that Rika, her person was one of her fans. Which I thought that was an interesting dynamic there.
It was her wallet.
Yeah, she literally called that fan who had passed her wallet. So does it sound like she shows too much remorse for that? But during the interactions, Rika is forcing sternness from Ai that we have not seen up to this point. So it was cool to see just her being different, kind of
got a
coming
little
out
bit
of her
a
shell.
backbone. Yeah, she put her foot down a little bit because she's like, I'm not paying for you anymore. Like, because I think she like invites herself over.
Yeah.
She invites.
So she
herself
followed
to
her
stay the
home.
night.
She follows her home. She follows Ai home, and just kind of lets herself in. I didn't even know it until she was already through the door. And then, so it was cool seeing them hang out, though. I did like seeing them hang out. Her
mom was pleased.
Yes, Ai's sweet mother got her some. She was happy to see her with a friend and got them some snacks. And then, did they stay the night? Did Rika stay the night?
I'm pretty sure she did and didn't even ask.
Yeah, just kind of invited herself over and.
Which once we get more of a look into Rika's life, you can kind of see why she clung on to Ai like she did, and I don't know. I feel for her now coming into it. With the knowledge I have, I feel bad for my initial impression of her, but I don't know.
Yeah. So at this point, the girls are kind of all hanging out, texting.
They're getting acquainted. I love the texting sequences.
They exchange numbers. The texting sequences are so sweet. It's so cool because you get to see their each of their personality is definitely reflected through their text messages. It's cool seeing the backgrounds on all their phones. I enjoyed that, and yeah, the texting sequences were great. Just really, again, visually pleasing, nice moments. Kind of, what would you say? Like it kind of, you could just it was just good to see them all bonding together. More of an acquaintanceship at this point.
Yeah, they're getting comfortable with each other.
Yeah, just comfortable around one another.
And then Sawaki, who is, I guess, a mentor of Ai's, someone who kind of helped her out because she was very self-conscious about her different eye colors, and he offered to paint her, maybe to show her, like, hey, this is... Just because it's different doesn't mean it's unattractive.
Right. And
her heterochromia. And, he's around a lot, which I thought was weird.
He comes because he comes to her house every so often. I don't know the exact duration, but pretty frequently.
Enough that it's normal for her to be like, oh, he's here.
Yeah, Yeah, and then of course even the first time he was there, whenever Rika came over, and Rika commented on his handsomeness.
Yeah. And they kind of speculate. I think Rika's the first to bring it up that, like, what was Sawaki and Koito doing together? Because there was a particular moment in which he was holding Koito, and it seemed a little suspect in the reference we had it.
Yeah.
And Rika was like, I bet they had a little fling going on, and that's why she killed herself. And it plants that seed, and it develops into something interesting.
Yeah.
And then we learn more about the rules from the egg world as we meet the next two spirits.
Which is essentially they enter that by falling asleep and dream. Like that's their dreaming.
The dream world. And another way to pass is to survive until sunset. Or I guess for at least these two spirits, it seems like the Wonder Killer beating the Wonder Killer is the main objective. But the See No Evils at this point, I think, and this is a pretty interesting thing as well. If you are close enough with someone, you both can enter one person's dream. Yeah. So they enter Rika's.
The reason the way that Aka and Ura Aka described it is they fell asleep or near each other and at the same time, pretty much. And then the reason they had gone to Rika's dream as opposed to Ai's is because her feelings were stronger
for her, the person she's trying to bring back. Her fan. Which she doesn't want you to know that.
Which and I didn't really start thinking about that until later on, because this is supposed to be Ai's best friend, you know. So how could Rika's be stronger for just her wallet?
Maybe it shows her. The depth to her remorse was a lot deeper than she leads on.
Yeah, and we also and which I guess we also find a little bit more about Ai and Koito's relationship later on. So.
So, at this point, we get a deeper look into Rika and her wallet's relationship, and her insults to her fan was what drove her to death, because I think. At one point, she asked if they could hang out sometime, and she's like, "I'd never be seen with a fatty like you."
I think it talked about how she was upset when she had found out that the way I can't remember her name, whatever it was.
Yeah, I have a hard time remembering.
The reason how she came about her money.
She would steal and then sell it.
Yeah, she would steal and sell the stuff, and I guess that kind of threw Rika off guard, and. You know, like you said, she had asked Rika to hang out, and she said, "No, I'd never hang out with a fatty like you."
And she starved herself to death. Literally.
Yeah. She was talking about the next time she had seen her at the funeral, she was skin and bones, and that. Oh man, that was rough. So.
And and the shame of this is really like. I guess fueling Rika's desire to bring her back. And at this point, the Wonder Killer shows herself, and I bravely dives in to save Mimi and Mako, who their character design is interesting.
Yeah, just fanatical.
Yeah, very very obsessed with a particular artist, like Yu, I think.
Yes, yeah.
And as their encounter starts to develop, Rika kind of just is like. Good luck, and she turns to stone or dips out. I really don't know what happened there.
Something. She got touched or something. I think it was like a mist that the Wonder Killer had sprayed, and Rika just got caught up in it and just started turning to stone, like you said.
And this is something that the anime does, and I don't know if I just maybe miss things, but it moves at such a fast pace that sometimes things will happen, and I'm like, what? What happened?
At this point, I and the two girls take off, and again, so at this point, all of the egg people have been girls as well, and so, but anyway, so they're taking off running.
Then at this point, we are introduced to the last main character. Her name's Momoe.
Yeah,
I think they just call her Momo
for short, but yeah.
And I believe the spirit she is assisting. Her name's Miwa, and Miwa, she immediately shares a very painful recollection on a molestation that she had gone through with an executive at her father's company, and it was pretty fucked up because whenever they found out about it and she put a stop to it, her dad lost his job for it, and then her mother was like, "Why couldn't you have just dealt with it?" And I was like, "Golly,"
and so
some tough stuff.
Yeah.
But what were you gonna say?
So it looked like we were introduced to the first boy of the group of the new group in Momo, which I thought would be a cool twist, kind of interesting thing, and especially as he's saving Miwa, it just looks super heroic doing so and whatnot, and then so he defeats the Wonder Killer, and they're sitting at this train station, and she's kind of like Miwa is kind of leaning on Momo, and I think at this point he mentions that he's actually a girl.
Yeah, and she's like, "You have such broad shoulders."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, an interesting note. So we also learn at this point, all of the girls, Neru, Momo, Rika, all of their places are different when they fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
They all get taken to a different place. I's is school. Neru's is like that bridge.
It's like a cityscape.
Yeah.
Nero's is pretty cool.
Yeah, and then Momo's is like
It's like a
train station. Yeah, and then Rika's is like just a big.
It's like a field of flowers.
Nice. Yeah, I think I like hers the best. Probably.
Yeah, hers is the most aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
And at this point, we transition. There's a lot of transitions in the show. It really flip flops around, but we're back to I and the Wonder Monster. So Mimi and Mako, they hand over their pin lights,
and they're all like doing it at the same time. It's kind of and so just like you said, like how you mentioned the transitioning back and forth, they're all like it seems like they're all doing this at the same time. But this, like you were saying, back to I and her Wonder Monster.
And she gets these pin lights, and they turn into like these pretty cool double dagger looking things, and they use their music and they play it. And so they're like, shake the pin lights, and she was just kind of like shake it like you mean
like
it.
like a little yeah.
It was pretty funny.
It was pretty funny.
Because the Wonder Killer, or the Wonder Monster, whatever. Was a super fan just like them, so they're like, any super fan can't resist dancing, and I was just like,
it was kind of goofy.
Yeah, it was pretty goofy.
It was an odd, goofy turn. I didn't mind it necessarily though, which usually I'm not. It's not really my the goofiness isn't really my. I don't know. It just fit here for some reason. It just kind of worked here.
Mm-hmm.
But now, so it's at this point, which I mean, we're like we're still early, like the fourth different Wonder Killer, maybe, that we see, fourth or fifth, because I guess we kind of also discovered that they are all, this is all happening at the same time between all of the girls.
Mm-hmm.
But no more humanoid from here on out. It is just
strict monster
off the
style.
wall,
Yeah,
colorful. All of them are super colorful monsters. So
we transition back to Momo fighting off Miwa's predator. She ends up using herself. Miwa uses herself as bait, and Momo comes in and seals the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Which her weapon's pretty cool. It reminds me of like a spear.
It's like an umbrella. Is it an umbrella?
It's like an umbrella spear. Mm-hmm. She uses it like a spear, like a halberd or something.
Right.
And as Momo seals the deal, we're back to I, and she's struggling to fight this Wonder Killer, and Rika finally comes back in, and she makes quick work of it, working with I. And so things kind of wrap up here in the egg world, and now Neru is being released from the hospital and revealing that the other world, the egg world, puts additional strain on your body, like high altitude training. So as you continue to fight there, you become stronger, you have more stamina, and even I was like, I think I have abs now. Like,
yeah, so and I thought that was a really cool aspect as well. I really liked that aspect that their bodies in the real physical world were just stronger, tougher. You couldn't see it, but I just thought it was them mentioning it being a thing in general was pretty cool.
Yeah, just to kind of give some continuity, I think. And so at this point, I and Neru's relationship start to feel a little more like a friendship.
Yeah.
And
because Neru had been in the hospital, right? And then I had been going to see her.
And Neru asks her to tag along, and a limo pulls up to take them home, and I's kind of like freaking out.
She was stunned, right?
And at this point, we find out that Neru's like the VP of a company, her own company.
Yeah, president of her own company at 14 years old, super successful.
It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
And so transitioning back to Momo, she's very popular with the spirits.
Quite the ladies' lady.
The ladies' lady, yeah. Vanquishes another wonder monster. She really grinds it out. Momo really grinds it out.
I like Momo's. I just like her character in general. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, like her spear.
It's cool. Just aesthetically, she's got a cool character. Mm-hmm. They all have really cool character designs, honestly. It's something I've really appreciated.
And absolutely.
So, at this point, we get more insight on Momo's statue, who ends up being a girl that she was very close with that eventually came on to her, and she did not know how to react, and it ended in that girl.
She was really complex. Momo's character was very complex.
Really, she was. And I don't know. At this point, we're starting to see the dynamic of everyone. Eventually, Momo will be in the mix. I think she rounds out the group, but the dynamic between Rika and Neru and Ai is interesting. Ai's kind of a middle ground. Rika and Neru really don't like each other throughout the rest of the series.
Ai's definitely holds them all together. And like you said, Rika and Neru, they don't get along at first at all. They start getting along better eventually, but they're...
very conflicting personalities.
Still, like you said, very conflicting personalities. But I do like how they're all very different. Just it seemed like a really cool group of gals. I just loved how different they were. I really like that aspect of it. Just seemed like real friends, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It felt very organic.
Yeah,
it really didn't feel forced. It was not, these people like you have to be around each other now.
Man, you could tell they really enjoyed each other's company. Jump right into Neru. She has a super sweet action scene. Her weapon, I would say, is the best.
It's cool. It's very versatile because it can change into several different guns. At one point, it's like an ultra great sword.
It was super sweet.
Yeah.
So now this is horror in genre. We haven't seen, I guess, the See No Evils. I don't know, they were creepy. So like episode 1 was creepy. I would say was creepy.
There was some gore. There was some odd themes, but
mysterious more than anything. But I kind of hated the See No Evils design though, like
cheesy. Yeah. Even the haters are kind of cheesy.
Yeah. But so it's just kind of like, when is this going to turn into like a horror kind of thing?
Yeah, I felt myself wondering that for a majority of the series. You definitely get it. But I think it took its time to get there.
Yeah.
It really felt like a slice of life for like 80%.
And it was like it really did feel like a slice of life. I forgot, like I was so enthralled in their text messaging sequences and stuff like that.
The development of their friendship.
Yeah, I was like, I would have been happy with maybe just the development of their friendship. I don't know.
Could have left out the whole
the whole plot,
subplot,
I guess. Yeah, and I would have been pleased with like just seeing them hang out all the time. But yeah, it's like, when is this going to turn into a horror anime? So the gang all meet up at Ai's house, and the speculation begins. So
this is when they really delve into like the Koito and Sawaki relationship.
Yeah, I can't remember how it's brought up, but it's we discover now that Sawaki maybe? Sawaki, that sounds right. Sawaki and Momo are...
That's her uncle, right?
That's her uncle. And so they're like, oh wow, that's crazy. They kind of make that recollection.
Momo gets mad when they start accusing
Well, so Rika, in her typical instigating self, kind of throws that thought out there that like something was going on between Sawaki and Koito.
Yeah, that's why she died.
And she was really like, she kept pressing it, and Momo did a pretty good job. She was pretty good at just kind of like letting it. I mean, she was getting frustrated, you could tell, but she's
pretty level-headed.
Yeah. Right. So, overall, their chemistry as a group is improving. They all seem comfortable around each other. So we're back in the egg world. Neru is saving another spirit. The spirit bringing up another interesting concept that the thought of dying at the peak of your physical attraction and the problematic stigma of beauty.
Very interesting. Very interesting spirit. I thought that was an interesting concept. I'm sure it happens where people are like, well, I don't want to see myself age into something like unappealing because there is such a stigma on like you have to look good. Especially I feel like that pressure is so much stronger on like women, and it's something that I'm sure they have to deal with often.
No, it's like it's always in the back of your, like it's just a societal
pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now at this point, I was really impressed with Nehru as this wonder killer that you were just talking about. Was just different. It was unique, probably the most unique of the rest that we see, in that the way it was defeated was by like shooting, or so she, because she had this super sweet sniper that she was trying to blast at him, and then eventually like something kind of a thought came into her head, and she had fired at the spirit itself, and like hit her, like cut, pretty much just eliminates 70% of her, like her hair. Looked kind of ugly at this point, just all over the place, crazy. And then I guess at that point is when
it's like you regret what you did, don't you?
And I don't know. So that was like the most kind of unique kind of thing there of the Wonder Killers, in particular. But I liked how, and we also see how Nero was just kind of like, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for my sister. Like, whereas I is like comforting them, Momo's comforting them. I don't really remember like Rika's thoughts on.
She doesn't seem to get too involved with the spirits she saves.
But Nero was definitely like whatever, do your thing, get out of here. I have a
meeting in 30 minutes. Like
exactly. So, but that was interesting. So not long after the group's arcade excursion,
that was pretty fun.
So the gang end up in an arcade in the Egg World, and share a bonding moment with each other. Super sweet scene.
They even ask, like, Akka, please, like, give us one game. Like, we're basically going through group therapy.
And so Urda Akka was like, well, what can it hurt? Flips the lights on in the arcade. That was just a fun scene. It was fun seeing them get to hang out in that setting and just play games with each other, learn more about each other. I really enjoyed that. A lot. It was a nice bonding moment between all of them. Interesting point was made that what they're going through is like group therapy, and that kind of made at that point my
kind of clicked something with me too. I was like, you really
it really is like group therapy. So just a super fun scene. The scenarios that they each go through seem to be some sort of reflection on themselves. Eyes, like her setting a school, and thus far all of the eggs have been like victims of bullying. And Momo's, hers have seemed to be.
It seems like romantic confusion. Because all the spirits end up falling for her, and she really resists it. Which that builds up to something very interesting as well.
Yeah, we'll see.
And I don't know. Neros are just kind of complex problems more than anything else, like problem solving. But Riku's, it doesn't get too deep into hers. We get a lot more of her development in the real world, which I do appreciate for it in itself.
So. Not long after the group's arcade excursion, Rika's selfishness begins to surface more again, which I'm sure I can see your eyes rolling in the back of your head as this is going on. And she's asking them not to buy eggs. She goes as far as to claim their statues may not even want to come back, creating tension across all of them. But she makes a good point, because she's kind of like,
how do we know?
Yeah, how do we know what they're feeling? They killed themselves.
Yeah, most of them didn't give any notes or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like these are all people that had killed themselves. We don't know how they're feeling. We don't know if they want to come back. Which I thought was an interesting point. Just to have it be floating out there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so created some tension between everyone, and then now Nehru opens up about her sister's death. Actually, she was stabbed by her sister. She has a gnarly
scar on her back.
Yeah, which I'm like, that. How does? I don't know. It was just pretty wild.
Yeah, how do you end up with something like that?
Mm-hmm. But she talks about she's like, you know, whenever I think about this, like my body's getting more fit. The scar used to ache. You know, now that I've been doing this, it doesn't hurt anymore. But only when I think about it, like it's like a curse almost.
Yeah, when she stops thinking about her sister, her scar will ache. But when she's in the egg world, it kind of. Mm-hmm.
So she's, you know, she makes the point of, I'm doing this for me.
Yeah.
You know, so.
So very interesting. I think Momo has probably, like you were saying, the most complexity as far as her character goes, but we get a lot of insight into Nehru and the way that she is that I think is very interesting as well. Honestly, all 4 characters have some pretty good depth to them. Mm-hmm. We get some, even though it's a 12, 13 episode experience, there's a lot of good character growth and development. It was interesting. I'm still waiting. At this point, like, we've passed the slump, in my opinion. Once Momo's in the mix, I think the story really starts to escalate, and it really hits its stride from this point on. But it's a ways to go before we get any horror elements.
Yeah.
But I think episode 6 and on is when I started really getting into it.
Yeah.
And at this point, we are introduced to a new enemy archetype. They're called haters.
I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, and conceptually they're interesting because they've essentially received so much notoriety in the egg world that they have earned themselves haters. Mm-hmm. Kind of a funny play on how things work in our reality. And so the haters are breaking through, and we're brought back into reality, and Ai's mother is pushing for her to meet with Sawaki, and she has just a full-on tantrum about it. Kind of out of her character, to be honest. I would consider Momo the most level-headed, but I think Ai's second most level-headed. And it just kind of had my gears turning about, like, is this foreshadowing to their predictions for Kaito's death? Like, is he really a scumbag? Like, is he going to take advantage of Ai as well? But we move away from that, and we're back at Aka's house, and they're essentially dubbed heroes, and they get these cool pomanders or amulets, and it's essentially a power-up. And
I thought that was just calling it a power-up.
Kind of an RPG element, if you will. And but they require hatching, and they imprint to the first thing they see. So, like, hey, go somewhere private. It has to be in our world, and then come back to the egg world once you've done that. So they each get a new companion, which they were all pretty cute. I liked the design for all of them.
Yeah, I think I liked Ai's and Nero's the best. Ai's being like a chameleon. Was it a chameleon?
Yeah, a chameleon.
And then
Nero had a snake.
The snake, which was pretty sweet.
Rika's turtle was cute. Design-wise, the turtle's probably the cutest, but...
So now, Ai's and Nero's are pretty normal in terms of, like, it's just a standard animal, a chameleon state. However, Rika's was the turtle, which... it just looked like maybe it had some horns. I don't know. It
had like a red beak, and it was like an albino turtle, and I don't know.
What was Momo's? I couldn't remember.
It looked like a small alligator.
Yeah, it was like a crocodile. Yes, okay, I remember now, like that kind of crocodile thing. But it's just that theirs two almost seemed like crossbred with something else, or something like that.
Very cool. Yeah, and I think they fit each character fairly well. So back in the egg world, I summons her pet, and he's like an empty void when it comes to eating these haters. That's all he wants to do. So that takes care of that quickly. And this allows Ai to save her spirit. And this spirit, I just call them spirits at this point. Yeah. That's kind of how I see them.
Same,
but she has an affinity for the spiritual world in her past life, and she was tormented by spirits and the negative emotions of others. Yeah. And that landed her into essentially like a psychological ward.
I was so thrown off whenever the spirit is kind of explaining to Ai, like, I see dead people, and then Ai says, like the Sixth Sense.
Yeah, I was just that was a pretty funny reference.
That was pretty funny.
So that was interesting, and right as things start getting tense, Ai's woken up, I'm assuming, and she's like, her mom's like, hey, it's time to sit down and talk with me and Sawaki, and she makes a sukiyaki spread. And it looks so good. I was starving after I saw that. Yeah. There's something about anime, but they just make the food. My mouth is watering talking about it.
Yeah.
But man, I was definitely craving some like ramen or something after that. And the confrontation ended up being Ai's mom revealing her intentions to date Sawaki, and Ai throws a fit, and her form of throwing a fit, which I thought was kind of funny, kind of cute, is she's like, well, if you date him, then I'm putting you both in a home, and I'm only visiting occasionally.
Sometimes, yeah, that was hilarious.
It shows how soft she is.
Yeah, she's like, you guys do whatever you want, none of my business, but
you're going to a home,
and I'm only visiting you sometimes.
Yeah,
that was funny.
It was really funny, and this just kind of reads into not only the reservations towards Sawaki that I think Ai and her friend group have put into her head, but her own personal feelings for him, which end up, I guess, developing later. But transitioning back, we're in the thick of it in the egg world, and Ai is immediately getting beaten down by the spirits, and to overcome this, she kind of has to embrace her situation and her emotions. So she really lets her frustrations and whatnot flow through her. And she, I guess, in a sense, because she gained insight to herself and her own situations, she was given the sight to fight that spirit. And she makes quick work of him, or it. And now at this point, Ai's kind of accepted the fact that she likes Sawaki as well, and she runs through the rain all the way to school to tell him, hey, I'm going back to school now.
Yeah, which she shouldn't have been to school, and like that's kind of her thing, and she just stopped going to school and was kind of a shut in.
Mm-hmm. I think that was maybe post losing Koito.
Yeah,
she just didn't have the strength to go back to school, face her bullies alone. And so, interesting development there.
Something I really liked, or at the end of episode 6, whenever she's running in the rain, finds Mr. Sawaki,
probably.
I'm so sorry, everyone. Cringe. So, she comes up to him and she's talking to him, and this is it's been a incredibly looking anime throughout. Like that's one of its strong suits, sure. Absolutely. But Ai looks down at this rain puddle, and you just see the reflection of the sky, beautiful blue sky, clouds moving in this reflection. I was stunned by that. I was like, that is it.
They definitely had a budget.
Yes,
they really did.
That was sweet, and it was goated for me as one of the best looking animes I've seen in
recent years.
Yeah, it was so good. I just wanted to. I cannot stress enough how awesome it looks.
A lot of attention to detail.
Oh, absolutely. So we get to see here we get to see more of the gang's interactions. which I love. I just forget about the rest of the anime. Every time I see them just cutting up with each other, having fun, or even when they get into little arguments, petty squabbles, I just totally forget about.
I forget it's a horror anime. Yeah. I forget about the egg world, and I'm just sucked into their the dynamic of their friendship.
Yeah, like it's they did a really good job on that. So it's just developed, I would say, at this point. We also get some insight on Rika's home life.
Sad, dude.
Yeah, and her relationship with her mother. Super sad. Her mother is an alcoholic. It looks like she runs some sort of small bar.
Yeah, I think either their house is above the bar or behind the bar, but her mom definitely runs a bar.
Yeah, so the first time we even see her mom,
red in the face drunk.
Yeah,
hungover,
just waking up, asleep at the bar, hungover, and she's like, "Oh, hey Rika,
happy birthday!
Happy birthday! It's your birthday. Take this money. Go get yourself something." I don't know how much money it was. They don't seem very.
It was like 1,000 yen, which I don't think is much.
Yeah. So, but yeah, nice. She remembered it was her birthday at least.
Yeah.
And in which Rika's like, "No, keep it. How about you just tell me who my dad is?" And, and then they kind of have a little dialogue about that. You could tell it's a touchy subject. So, Ai is transitioning into her school life well. She's appreciating her friends, in which it seems like they all go to separate schools.
Yeah, that's what I think.
So even though they go to separate schools,
I don't think Nero goes to school. I think
Nero doesn't. She works full time. She's 14 years old. Runs her own Fortune 500.
Yeah, good for her. You don't need middle school. You're doing fine.
So Rika's birthday wish is to meet her real dad, and she pulls out her
deck of dads.
Yeah, which Austin dubbed the deck of dads. It was like 6 Polaroid pictures of different men that had been with Rika's mom. And so she shows that to the gang and just hopes for them to help her find her dad. And I can see where Rika gets her pride from. And so this definitely adds some depth.
This is when I started okay, I can understand Rika's character, and tolerable is probably a much stronger word than I mean. This is when I started to empathize, I believe, with Rika, and I was like, okay, I don't hate you so much.
And it adds some insight to Rika's infamous.
Saying? I think it's.
Pretty girls.
My dad always told me a pretty woman never needs a wallet because someone will always pay for her. And she never met her dad, so that's so sad.
Yeah, because that's like the only memory she has of her dad is
that saying.
That saying. So now Neru points out the codependency of the relationship
between her and her mom.
Yeah. And Rika and her mother causing another lash out, and so Rika. Kind of how we were talking earlier about just the whole group dynamic, how they're all different. Rika was bashing on Momo's uncle, who she's close with, and
she can't take it.
Yeah, Momo was like, she was getting frustrated, but she sat there and took the blows. Whereas immediately Rika snaps and is like, she stands up and is lashing out essentially, and so just kind of get to see. Just how they're all different, different personalities, which I just appreciate that in general. So, she lashes out. Now, their relationship towards each other is not great, but Ai seeks out Rika after she storms off to comfort her, and their shared experience of being raised by single mothers. She calls them the...
So like the single mom group or the single mom squad or something.
Yeah, something like that. Nice, cute moment between them. Yeah. And Ai is she's the classic glue that holds the whole group together. It really seems like. So she provides us some comfort. They shared that nice moment.
I love the motif of the angry venting in a batting cage thing that they did.
That was really cool. Yeah. So Ai and Rika take off and Neru and Momo, they're kind of hanging out. They're trying to get a hold of it. It seems like of Rika, like they're texting the group, but to no response, which is fine. I appreciated that. And Momo's kind of like, let's just give them some space, and she'll be back to her old stuff tomorrow. And it was a really cool moment of Rika. We got to see. She was like, just for a second, she was like, "Hey, this is serious Rika talking." And I can't remember what the dialogue was, but it was serious and showed a different side of herself. So it was nice to see that. And the batting scene was cool, even though Rika was missing every single ball.
Yeah, I just like that trope, I guess.
Yeah. So the situation unraveling more as the gang splits between I and Rika.
And then Mo and Nero kind of they stick with each other.
Yeah. So Nero is showing some remorse for her brash honesty, and she kind of speaks on it like, I've just always kind of been like this, and she doesn't really change ever either.
No, she doesn't.
And she mentions we learn that she's never had parents.
Yeah, she's like, I don't understand because I don't have parents,
Yeah.
which we get more into. Initially, I was like, were they killed by her sister or something? What happened here? But and I was like, is that why she's the president? Did she inherit this company? But it ended up being its own interesting situation.
Yeah. So Rika just kind of spends the rest of her birthday along with her turtle. What was it?
Brahmin?
Yeah.
Manon?
Yeah. So.
Manon, I believe.
And she's kind of just alone in the bathroom, and we learned that she cuts herself.
Yeah.
She has a pretty wild scars.
Yeah, she's a collection of them. Yeah.
And she was about to do it again whenever she looks at her turtle, and she
resisted it.
And she mentions like, you imprinted on me, like you see me as your mother. And she just kind of, I want to take that seriously, and this isn't what a good mom would
exactly
do.
Yeah.
So
relatable. Relatable. And then transitioning to the egg world, Rika's tasked with, I guess, transitioning a spirit who had been part of like maybe something like a brainwashed suicide cult is kind of how it seemed. And it was a very interesting situation in itself. And she ended up like murdering her parents and then killed herself because they had bad cosmic karma, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And Rika ended up in her frail mental state kind of falling susceptible to that brainwashing as well. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah. That was interesting to see. That was another left turn. I had no idea was coming. That was pretty wild to see.
And using their the Palmanders are like their amulets. The rest of the group, worried about Rika, they try to support her and break her out of it. And
they're like talking to her through
like a walkie-talkie system almost.
Yeah.
And
even though like she had her own battle going on, but she was still trying to reach
concerned
out to.
about, which was another interesting introspection there too. Because I think Akka at that point was like, hey, you need to focus on yourself. Do you focus on your friends just to keep you from dealing with your own problems?
Yeah.
And there are so many moments in this show where they get into some deep concepts. But what ends up saving her is Manon, her turtle, equating her relationship with him, kind of like you were saying earlier, to her being its mother. She realizes the importance of not only the mother protecting their offspring, but vice versa, like the offspring doing the same. So there's a duality there. And another deep parallel. So Rika decides to, break cycle of neglect that her mother has started with her, and being better. So deep stuff. So turning a new leaf, Rika and Manon tag team. The Wonder Killer, and she kind of accepts her weakness as part of her and moves on. And
yeah, that was pretty cool.
And the spirit passes as well. And everyone's eagerly awaiting her return. Everyone was sweetly worried about her. And some good misdirection at the end. I was kind of expecting a heart-to-heart with Rika and her mother, but instead Rika just kind of like subtly burned her the whole time because she's like, I'm hungry. Well, there's some cake in there, but it's probably dry. And she's like, yep, you're right. This is dry. And it was just funny.
Rika's mom was like, you'll leave me too someday. And Rika's like, yeah.
She's like, maybe.
Yeah. All right. So
episode 8 was kind of a wasted episode. I could probably rant about this for a while, but a 13 episode anime doesn't need 1 but 2 episodes set aside to recap the story.
It was wild.
I couldn't believe that that's what the 8th episode was a recap. I was like, I'm very familiar with what's happening.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I mean, it was almost like a filler-esque, but no need for that.
Just make it an 11 episode if you're trying to fit.
Like if there's a certain number, you're trying to hit for whatever reason.
Just cut an episode out. We did not need that.
Or give us an OVA
after the fact.
Yeah, or give us an actual filler episode. We get to see them hang out for a whole day. Like
I would have gladly accepted.
A la the arcade episode. Give us another one of those.
Yeah.
Don't give me a recap. Yeah, have them go camping. Have them just do something fun together. We get to see more of their super cute, fun relationship. More texting sequences.
Yeah, I would have taken an episode of them texting each other.
Going on a date. Well, like Momo did. Something. Give me something. Or another whole episode dedicated to each of their, people that can, that they're trying to say. I don't know, something. Give us
some backstory.
There's plenty to do, but they
felt gypped.
Yeah, they chose. That's the route they chose to go. I know this is not popular with the people because I quickly went to Reddit and everyone unanimous
hated that.
Yeah, they hated that.
So I'm sure we're preaching to the choir on this one, but hot take though, if you are interested in watching but you don't want to, for whatever reason, commit to 13 episodes, start at episode 8, finish it out. Yeah. I'd say it's worth at least doing that if you don't want to dedicate the time to watch it from front to back.
But you're missing,
you miss out on a lot.
Miss out on a lot, just of their quirks and their cute friendship.
But I guess if you want a horror experience, start at 8, because I think 9 and on's when you start getting a taste for that. But again, I think the horror was way more impactful, or I guess the shocking moments of the anime, because you had like 7 episodes of like slice of life. I forgot about the horror aspect by the time it started happening, and it was shocking to me. And I think in a roundabout way, like, that was pretty well executed.
Speaking of shocking, episode 9, like you said, was really when it hits its stride. And okay, so Neru, we get a deeper dive into her life now. We find out she's living in her business building.
Yeah, she just lives there.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. She's a prodigy, a product of artificial insemination.
So how she doesn't know her parents.
Yeah. So that's explained. And I was really, just a curveball kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. So the group bond over painting each other's nails. They discuss their future plans. I think it's maybe Rika asked Neru, what do you want to do? And she's like, I'll probably just do this forever. So that was kind of sad.
Yeah.
But it's just that's another thing. I don't know. Well, I can get into that a little bit later. But just with her character. But anyway, so Naru introduces them to Kotobuki, another girl like her who artificial insemination, who was a scientist, a doctor of psychiatry, I believe.
And specifically studying the effects of death in the afterlife.
Yeah, by studying this via
giving herself
near-death experiences. Yeah,
and she landed in a vegetative state, which kind of tough. At first, I thought this girl Kotobuki was her sister that she talked about, because they're both product of artificial insemination, but not the case. Still, their relationship was interesting. When Naru eventually enters the egg world, you get to see some actual genuine emotion from Naru, which was interesting. Yeah.
So Naru keeps Kotobuki alive. She's in a vegetative state, but her physical body's alive, in an incubator. So that just was interesting. We get to see this is like probably Naru's oldest and closest friend. So recollecting an egg dream, Naru meets Kotobuki for their final goodbye. It seemed like
because that was one of her spirits she met.
So getting some backstory on their relationship and their personalities, completely opposite. Naru living in facts and Kotobuki in the abstract.
Naru lives in like the black and white, and then Kotobuki, like, she is the gray area in between the two.
She had no she had no regrets. Like, she ended up in that state.
She was happy to get the experience.
And even died? I don't know. I was kind of confused on that. Because obviously she was an egg. And so
I think that symbolized that, she did.
She did die, and her body was in that vegetative state. I don't know. It was kind of it was interesting dynamic, I guess. Right. So,
and she contemplates the logistics of keeping Kotobuki's body alive here, and obviously Kotobuki's wishes are let it pass on. Just don't let them operate on me.
She brings up she's like, I don't want any adults to touch my body, for whatever reason. So yeah, that was interesting.
And it's seeming kind of a rush decision. The gang kind of like, hey, why don't you just sleep on it, you know? Because Naru is getting really in her head about it.
Yeah. Yes, which I understand. I mean, these are all like 14-year-old girls. We kind of forget.
Yeah, we really do.
So, I pulls her hoodie up, tightened, drawstrings.
Her signature upset move.
Which I love. Kind of a cute, funny detail.
It really is. I really appreciate that.
Now, so Akka and Uraraka's egg world seems to be connected with Nero's company.
Because they show that girl that we saw in like a presentation room. They were talking to her.
So like they're at the it's Nero's assistant. And so Momo and Rika are leaving. Naru Ai goes back in there to kind of talk to Naru. And then so this is whenever we see that the assistant, they go back to the egg world. Akka and Uraraka are talking to that assistant, like on this weird computer screen. And so that's kind of we see that first dynamic there, that they're connected with Nero's company.
And I couldn't help but think, like, is this why eggs cost money? Are they making money off of doing this?
I didn't think about that. That's pretty funny. Because obviously Nero, who has the most money, refuses to give Rika any, so. So I returns to support Nero, and her choice, and both of them end up pushing the bottom to keep the blame from being on one for, completely. Yeah,
they both like press the like terminate button, I guess, and I guess it's like, well, maybe I did it, or maybe Nero did it. Well, we never know. Kind of like how the firing squad, everyone has blanks but one person, so no one has to live with that guilt of like, I killed this person. Sweet sentiment. Very sweet sentiment.
I was a little bit upset. So obviously Nero's character is super complex. However, so whenever they were in that dream, she was in the dream with Katabuki, and she's like, Katabuki's like, you've made friends. And Nero's like, but they're not you. And that kind of annoyed me. I'm like, because the group of girls they care for her.
They really do, especially I. Yeah. I think I and Nero have the closest relationship of the group.
But I was still, Katabuki really grew on me because she's like, cherish them, you know? She's like, after I pass, in a parallel, I'll find them and I'll be friends with them. So that was cool.
Yeah, really touching. This episode was pretty funny because it starts off with a very nervous Momo preparing for a date. And the girls are all like giving her advice on like how to structure her day. They're all being super supportive.
Yeah, and it was funny because we see her like getting around and doing some odd things that it's out of the blue for her. And then we get some more group text scenes, our favorite. And Mom was kind of like, I can't today. I'm going on a date. And all the girls were like, what? So that was, it was just classic fun stuff there. Yeah, but yeah, they were giving her advice.
It was kind of funny because they were at Akka's house, and we were delving deeper into their places in the egg world, like where Akka and Akka stand and everything, and it's completely derailed by that, which I thought was funny. And they also kind of freaked out about Neru because she like let her hair down and everyone was like,
she styled it differently. I didn't really understand that. I didn't understand why. I thought we're going to get to see some character development of hers, but it's just kind of like, she changed it.
It's fast tracked that.
Yeah. So.
And once Momo's date was brought up, they completely left. They were like, all right, let's go plan. And I was hoping to get more insight on why Akka and Akka decided to put their brains inside dummies. We never really got to touch on it, but they even, I think Akka said this, but he was like, well, girl talk is more important, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And Momo's date, sadly, a flop. She finally got a boy's attention, only for him to think that she was a boy too. So pretty mortified.
Which understandably so, because she usually dresses
very
more,
tomboyish,
masculine. So for her date, she got super cute, in a long dress and this and that, and then the date was like, oh. So I can only imagine how awkward that was, and you could tell Momo was embarrassed whenever he said that publicly, and everyone's kind of looking at her.
Poor Momo.
She doesn't deserve that.
No, she's a good girl.
Yeah.
So I confronts Sawaki about his plans to move. He's finally figured out how to make it as an artist. That's a passion of his. So they kind of move on from that. And at this point, he invites her to an art exhibition. And we delve more into that later. But transitioning to the egg world, we're back with Momo, and she meets a spirit who is internally a boy, and in typical fashion comes onto Momo, like all the others before her. And the Wonder Killer finally appears, and it's a teacher who, in the spirit's past life, took advantage of the spirit's name's Kaoru, and rough stuff because the teacher impregnated her.
Raped her and impregnated her.
And it created this whole transition, and
That was a rough scene to watch.
That was awful.
That was rough because I don't know. It was just rough. So.
And so Momo and Kaoru, pretty much being two sides of the same coin, experiencing strife in their lives for not being perceived as, like Kaoru not being perceived as a boy, like Kaoru's intentions are, and Momo not being perceived as a girl. So I think they really bond over that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Kaoru's into Momo, but using these strong emotions to best the Wonder Killer. And they really acknowledge each other, and you get a quick smooch before passing on, which this is the first one that all the spirits before Kaoru attempted to, but this is the first one that actually got to with Momo, so I think something finally clicked with her.
Yeah.
And this is the point in which I realized the horror's starting.
Mm-hmm. As we're 96% into the anime now?
Pretty much. And so Momo completed her egg world, and we do not get the payoff we were told or anticipated, as essentially it seems as if the statue is reanimated and it just passes through Momo.
Yeah, so they were like obviously she's feeling probably a roller coaster of emotions now, as which the whole point that they originally started going there
was to bring him back.
I mean, and that maybe gets lost a little bit. I almost believe so. Rika had mentioned earlier on that we should stop doing this. Blah blah blah. I almost feel like Momo maybe had a small moment too. Maybe not. I could be remembering incorrectly, but it definitely gets lost in their friendship. They, their overall arcing mission, original mission, kind of gets lost in just how they all become friends with one another and have this really great friendship. So, so Momo's probably on a roller coaster of emotions, and they're about to embrace each other, and like you had said, just the statue, who's now what looks to be like a human again, just passes right through her. So.
And this was probably one of the harder things I had to watch, but a strange Reaper appears, whose head ends up being like a butterfly.
So it's like it's like a flower, and then whenever it unravels, it's like
it looked like a bug, a butterfly, maybe a bug of some sort for sure. And the face is like hyper realistic, super detailed, and it only has like a mouth.
Yeah, so creepy.
Yeah, very unsettling looking. And And Momo's pet sacrifices itself to protect her and is killed instead. And this thing forces Momo to eat.
So she's just probably what seems to be paralyzed in fear and confusion.
Blood splattered over her.
She says, I don't want to kill you, so I took your
friend instead.
Your friend instead. And she very creepily starts eating this alligator or crocodile.
It's like, I've heard gator tastes like chicken. You want to give it a try?
Yeah, and then so Momo's still paralyzed in fear or in confusion. She feeds her that.
Ugh.
And I am traumatized. I've seen this every time I close my eyes now.
And then finally, I was like, okay, we're in horror territory now. It took
you got what you wanted.
10 episodes to get here.
Yeah, you got careful what you ask for.
We made it. So, kind of the same thing for Rika. The spirit of her fan does the same thing, starting off this episode by brutally killing her pet as well. This giant like wrecking ball slams in on her turtle. Ugh. Mm-hmm. And the turtle gets like deheaded, and
it's rough, man.
And that Reaper's like, I don't eat meat, so you're gonna have to do this one.
Yeah,
for
like
me.
you can eat this if you want it.
And Rika pisses herself. Like they even note it. Like shocking stuff, honestly. So finally in horror territory.
And so I enter as the Akka house. Maybe this is the first time they go there, and Akka and Akka are not in the garden how they normally are. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. It's this time though. It's just definitely a very different feel to it this time around. I can't remember if maybe it was nighttime whenever she got there.
It was nighttime at the Akka house.
And so it was just very ominous. I kind of goes. She slowly enters the home. She starts looking around, and she discovers their studies on suicide, and just a huge collection on all kinds of research.
Yeah.
And then Uraka appears and recollects their project on creating a girl, an AI, named Frill, and they eventually meet Azusa at a tech, what would you call it, a symposium?
Sorry, cat interference.
Yeah, and
they do meet at Azuka at a. It was supposed to be a tech symposium, but it looked like a rave. Really.
Yeah, it was pretty. And they note that they were kind of thrown off by the environment. Okay, so at this point, so Azusa falls for Akka. So what was their relationship, Akka and Uraka?
I still don't know. At first I was like, are they brothers? Because
I thought they were brothers at first.
Just to fast forward, I mean, Akka and Asuza have a kid, and the kid calls Uraka uncle. So it's like, are they brothers? But there's speculation on maybe they were together, or there was interest.
Frill says something. She's like, Frill and Akka are sitting in this room, and Akka and Uraka and is it Uraka that Suzuha ends up with?
Akka.
Okay, Akka. Okay, I'm sorry. So
it's hard because their names are like one syllable different.
Okay, so Uraka and Frill are sitting at this table. The other two are in the other room, and Frill she says something along the lines of maybe like, "Are you jealous?" And then she's like, she had like stolen away your husband, and like verbatim, pretty much. I'm paraphrasing a little bit.
She presented a philosophical situation as well of like, whenever your husband cheats on you, do you get mad at the husband, or do you get mad at the woman who seduced him? And so it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's never made very clear.
I think it enters into like whatever headcanon you want territory.
Yeah.
Because they don't really touch on it.
So that was interesting. But obviously, so Frill, this AI girl that they had created and loved as a daughter for a while, several years at least, she gets jealous of Azusa and throws a hairdryer into the bath. Who's pregnant, like Austin mentioned, mind you, very much visibly so. And so then cut away, we see to a hospital and a room. It looks like the baby.
Yeah, they saved the baby.
But man, what a wild scene. And so we don't really start seeing this until just like episode, what is it, 9?
I think this is episode 11.
Okay, so 9 to like 11 is just boom, 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 madness.
Yeah, it hits its stride at 6, but it starts sprinting at 9.
Yeah, that's perfect. Now, yeah. So it was just wild stuff.
And Akka's broken.
Yeah,
he locks Frill in like a cellar.
Drags her pretty. I mean, obviously, violently throws her down the bar hair, throws her down the stairs. And she, she's Frill is like saying, "Ow, it hurts," and he just kind of.
You're programmed to say that. You
exactly.
don't feel pain.
Yeah, and just so in a rage, he does that. Throws her in the cellar. Now, the baby that survived, Himari, who we see right after this, finally brings them both out of that what they say probably their darkest rock bottom moment, from the loss of their two loved ones.
Yeah.
And years pass. Himari grows until one day they find her dead in the
bathtub. Her like wrists are slit, blood's all over the floor.
Yeah, and so just before this, there was a strange moment
because Uraraka and Hamari are at like a dinner. It's her birthday.
Just those two. And so what does she? So she brings up a kind of a strange scenario.
Yeah, she's like, so you. I heard that you liked my mom too. But she picked Akka instead. Like, how does that make you feel?
They kind of laugh it off, and he's like, whatever. No big, like, where'd you hear that from? Laughs it off.
Yeah, just like classic like brush off. But she says something like, "Oh, well, don't worry, I'll wait for you." And because she calls him uncle, it's like, are Akka and Uraraka related? Because if they are, that's weird, man.
Yeah.
Like, so surely they just call him that because he's close.
Always there.
So it just further like muddies the water of like what are Akka and Akka's dynamic.
And so she does this this like popping her lips kind of thing.
Like
that Frill used to do all the time, and that just gave Uraraka a super weird feeling. So anyway, so they stumble upon Himori's dead body. It looked like she had committed suicide in the bathtub. And so they're just stunned at this.
Uraraka loses at this time. Akka freaked out on Frill, and Uraraka freaked out this time.
Yeah, so they end up coming to the consensus that Frill was ultimately the cause of this. Uraraka ends up.
It looked like he burned her or something.
Yeah, he drags her out of that cellar that she had been in for so long, and it looks like he had burned her alive.
Another like touch and go moment that I wish they elaborated more on, but
yeah. So
and this created their obsession with suicide tendencies in girls, and because I guess they just wanted to understand because Hamari didn't leave a note, it was out of nowhere. The only foul play they could even fathom was from Frill, and Frill was aware of this happening, so which further egged Uraraka on. So just I don't know, a lot to unpack there.
Oh yeah. So at this point it's kind of like are the Wonder Egg girls being pushed to their limits? We kind of see how they maybe are starting to succumb to
the tendencies, like suicidal tendencies themselves.
Yeah.
Because Momo, she regrets even doing this at this point. And Rika is getting lost in her own anger for losing Manon the way that she did. So it makes you wonder, like, are they putting themselves... Are Uraraka and Uraraka putting these girls through these scenarios to make more case studies? So lots of questions.
It definitely seems like they had a motive the whole time. We learn, and yeah, just kind of definitely everything kind of gets turned upside down at this point. And I guess, yeah. So and like you said, they don't really elaborate too much on it, which is disappointing. But yeah, so now episode 12 here.
So we learned that those bughead creatures, the two that we saw anyways, are called Dot and Hyphen, and which makes you wonder if they are connected to Frill. I kind of picked up on that. Again, very quick touch and go. As far as what I can recall, I think there being a lot of elaboration.
I believe Frill created them. But like so, it shows like her like the heads anyway, like in this jar, and then like you said, touch and go. We don't ever really see any more of it.
She needed a friend.
Yeah.
So Momo and Rika completely shattered by their experiences. Momo regrets even doing this, and she breaks away from the group. She's like, I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want anything to do with you. I'm fucked right now. And Rika is on her like revenge arc, and she just wants her friend back. So Neru and I have to make the decision of like, well, we have to put ourselves through this now. So they kind of force I to go through, I guess, this trauma next, and Ai refuses to let her pet out. She's like, I'm not gonna let Leon die. That's what she ends up naming her her chameleon friend. And so Akka forces the pet out, and Ai's egg, weirdly enough, was herself. Mm-hmm. So in another like parallel universe,
they briefly touched on that. Mm-hmm. Parallel universes.
Ai ends up committing suicide. So in a reality where Ai never met Koito, never got involved in this, never met her current cast of friends, she succumbed to the bullying, and it looked like she drowned herself in the pool. Yeah, is what happened. Mm-hmm. So protecting herself, I guess, they move along into said pool that she committed the act in, and the Wonder Killer in this scenario, go figure, is Sawaki. And so their encounter leading to Ai falling into the pool was interesting. He was kind of just shooting paint, and once they go into the pool to dodge everything, he drops like a purple drop in there, and it causes some like hallucinations or something. I really didn't understand the link there.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
Yeah, this was one of those animes that proposed 100 questions and maybe answered like 10 of them.
Yeah.
There was just a lot left unsaid. But essentially, she's back in school with Kaito, and this facilitates a breakthrough with the Ai that committed suicide, regretting her decision. Mm-hmm. And this breakthrough allows her to let go of, her selfishness, and overcomes the way she feels about Sawaki. Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, if you like my mother, then I just want her to be happy. Yeah. So even though she did not get her closure with Koito, she commits to being like a warrior of Eros, and so her bughead enemy shows herself, and she ends up saving her Leon, the chameleon, and at the cost of suicide, her suicide self. I just called her Suicide Ai. Yeah. But and her eye, because he has like a
boomerang.
It's like a blade boomerang, and it comes back with an eye on it. So that was kind of rough to see. Yeah, I couldn't imagine seeing yourself being like mutilated like that. Mm-hmm. So pretty brutal. And another thing that really bothered me is we get a nearly hour-long OVA to wrap up the series, and half of it is another recap. We don't. I could have referred to episode 8. Yeah. I didn't need another one. It's only been like 3 episodes, you think, and it seemed like everything was released over the span of a year. I don't know how long the release took, but over the course of a year, definitely don't need 2 recaps.
In a 13-episode anime.
Yeah, big problem with that, honestly. Yeah. I could continue to complain forever about it, but
like Austin said, half of this was a recap. Another one, just strange, but so it was weird the way this one started off. Though I was concerned. Well, after we got through the recap anyway, it's like, so Nero and I maintain their friendship following the Wonder Egg events.
And she leaves her pet mouse, Adam, with Ai, and she's like, I have to go.
Which was strange. And then Ai immediately starts calling Nero, texting and calling, and she won't answer. So I was getting pretty concerned at this point.
Uncharacteristic for sure.
Yeah. Adam was the mouse's name. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
But so transition back into the normal world, begins. Sawaki ended up disclosing the events of Koito's death,
which ended up being way darker.
Yeah, and I didn't know. I never really knew how I felt about Koito, but then
framed her in a horrible, trash friend.
Oh my gosh, fake friend. Nero even kind of mentioned that at one point. She's like, And of course, being as lovely as she is, she's like, yeah, but she brought me out of a dark place at the end of the day. So whether she meant to or not.
Yeah, if Koito did anything, she kept her along to meet actual friends.
Yeah.
So that's probably the only redeeming quality of her character, because she ended up having relations with a teacher at her past school. That teacher committed suicide, and she ended up obsessed with Sawaki, and
she wraps him up like she
nearly put him in the same thing.
Yeah, she wraps him up into this whole ugly situation, threatening suicide.
Yeah, she threatened to fling herself off the roof if he didn't meet her up there.
Yeah, which he didn't meet her up there, and she ended up losing her balance. She was like making this huge scene. She ends up losing her balance and
accidentally falls to her death.
Yeah.
So sweet irony.
Yeah. So now back at school, I seems Koito. So it's like the first time, because initially
we didn't know what it seemed like. It was complete and utter waste of time. Like the spirits passed through.
It seemed like it was just some closure of some sort.
But they actually did come back.
Yeah, they actually did come back to life
at the cost of not knowing them anymore.
Yeah, which is interesting concept. I kind of like it though. I don't know. So I sees Koito at school, passes her, but she acts as if they had never met each other before.
Yeah, she's like, "Why are you calling me Koito?
Like you're so formal or
aren't
familiar
you
with me?"
Yeah, she doesn't call her I. She calls her by her last name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so heartbroken. I runs away.
The way she ran away was kind of funny because she kind of like
the goofy run.
Yeah, I thought I don't know. I couldn't. It didn't ruin the scene for me, but it kind of took me out of it.
Broke the immersion a little bit.
I didn't laugh, but a part of my brain was like, "That's really goofy."
So what do you think about like this reality here of their return to the normal?
With the insight, I'm glad Koito isn't in the mix anymore.
Oh.
Not a good person.
Yeah.
And at this point, the show, kind of like with Rika and her mom, did really good misdirection here, because they make you think Nero doesn't know her anymore. It ends up being her sister. That was really good misdirection.
I was terrified because I was terrified.
For a second, I thought that we were getting to see the scenario of I committing, like we got to see the Suicide Eyes life, because Koito didn't know her. She didn't have her friends from the Wonder Egg, and that she would eventually, like, full cycle. Like,
yeah, I was terrified. Because Nero, she tries calling Nero again. I guess somebody picks up, and they're like, "I don't know who you are." Whatever.
But she still had the sticker on her phone.
Yeah.
So I was like,
and that's another cool detail. Like just seeing that sticker on her phone. I don't know. Just another cool detail. Mm-hmm. Luckily, thank God, I see Momo and Rika.
They still
hanging out at karaoke. Super cool moment. But yeah, so they remember their time together. You know, we're all well and good there.
Yeah.
And the people they mentioned the people they brought back, forgot them as well. So after a long night of super fun karaoke, I get an unknown number calling her, which looked like she might know. She was pondering on answering whenever Rika's like, could be Nero. Turns out the girl I had spoken with was Nero's sister, and that the real Nero ran away after her last mission. So
that's why she dropped off Adam. She's like, keep him alive. I'm dipping out.
Yeah.
So who knows what happened? We really don't get to see that side of things.
Kotobuki's back.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Which was strange. I didn't really understand that.
Yeah, another like very open-ended situation in which they talk about parallel existence, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm just a Kotobuki from another existence, so this is why I'm here," and things that they probably could have spent some time debunking if they didn't give us another 25-minute recap.
Yeah.
So thanks for that.
Yeah.
I personally thought this episode was hard to follow.
Mm-hmm. Once we, once we trudged through the recap, and then it was nice seeing everybody. It was good. It was good that we learned that the whole Nero situation. The girls still remember each other. It's only their people that they had brought.
Spirits,
the spirits they brought back. don't remember one another. It still just what Kabu.
Oh man, what's her name? Kotobuki.
Yeah, so you're just straight, her being thrown into the mix was just.
It really muddied the waters.
Because really all she said was that essentially Naru is. Like she kind of explained what was going on and
apparently
where she was
hiding out, and they were like, "Yeah, I could see her living here," and eventually Naru calls Ai, and she chucks her phone.
Yeah, that was such a wild scenario because I
didn't understand.
She knows who's calling, but I think it's like I think she was glad to be done with everything as Rika and Momo were. So I mean, I kind of understand. Like,
I'm done with the egg world.
Yeah.
See you later.
Because it just seems like it was a lot, and especially Rika and Momo going through what they went through with losing their pets.
But what's weirdly enough, she, with her suicide self, she committed to being what did they call it? Like a warrior of Eros, or Eberos, or
Eros, yeah.
And
then when she gets presented with that.
And then whenever it's like, okay, you want to start doing egg world stuff again, she just chucks her. So it just seemed.
Yeah.
It was confusing.
Yeah, no, it was confusing.
This OVA, very confusing. And she decides to transfer schools, new me, new school.
Okay, and so this was strange too, because I was like, why? Because, I was only like, transferring schools, whatever, but I was like, why? Because she said she separated herself from the group.
And they don't really talk to each other.
I was like, what? You guys went through this whole experience?
Yeah, you could have been bonded for life.
Yeah.
You could have had some lifelong friends with this kind of trauma that you've been through together. And then there was a deja vu moment where they were talking about like, oh, it's supposed to snow tonight, even though it's a beautiful day, something along those nights. And that was that was like one of the last conversations her and Naru had.
Yeah.
And so she books it to the Aka house, and she regains her resolve to re-enter the egg world and be her warrior of Eros.
I is back.
Yeah. I'm angry now.
Yeah, which they all kind of had some of their own little catchphrases.
Yeah.
Naru's was I'm gonna blow your mind.
Yeah. And she just commits to seeing Naru again, and then boom, that's it.
And that's it. Anime over.
I was not satisfied. Yeah, not
what
satisfying.
On earth? I was so annoyed. So we don't. Are they? She separates herself from the group. Mm-hmm. Maybe we don't know if the other two are still hanging out. We don't know if she ever completes.
We just follow Ai from that point.
Yeah, we don't ever know if she completes her mission too. Like, to see Naru. Or, like, was that even her mission to see Naru? Or did she just want to... I don't know.
Is this just a parallel universe altogether?
What is going on? So we don't know. We don't know if she ever sees Naru again. I hate, me personally, usually, I hate... it's up to the viewer, you as a viewer, to decide.
Create your own headcanon and be happy with it.
Like, what? Maybe they thought they were going to get a second season. Maybe.
It seems like they did. Why?
There's no manga. There's no manga. This is an original anime.
Yeah, why the heck would you do 2 recaps? And it seemed like the OVA was to set up for a second season. I don't think the anime did good in Japan. It's considered like a sleeper success elsewhere in the world, but I mean, if it didn't do good in Japan, then I think it's just going to be tossed to the wayside. But even then, I just don't know. Mm-hmm. Overall, characters I really liked. The 4 main characters, I got so engrossed in their relationship together. So good story,
dude.
Good relationships. Now, as far as the story, the overarching story, overall kind of confusing.
So,
needlessly so, I think.
I want to get this out of the way real quick. Overall vitality.
it's hard. It had some very high moments, some very sweet moments, some moments where I was really enjoying it, and it had some really dull moments, some really confusing moments. I would almost say pretty mid, somewhere in the middle. What are your thoughts?
So I would agree. There was some super cool moments. Like, man, just their interactions with one another, seeing them together, that dynamic was awesome. There's some slice of life out there that the character development isn't as good. The times we see that with them together isn't. It's just such a fun group, and you really get attached to them, all of them, and unique design. They're also different, but that's what makes them special,
Yeah, it creates such a good relationship overall.
But the story and the questions that we're left with, just annoying. So I would say mid.
Yeah.
Overall, Vitality.
I would say a sleeper, Vitality.
I mean, it's worth the watch, but don't expect to be.
Unless we get a second season, I don't think there's much to redeem this. I think they planned it with the anticipation of getting a second season. Commit to the 13 episodes. It is worth a watch. Unless it's expanded upon, I don't think it's worth a revisit.
No.
There are several anime that I come back to on a yearly basis. Like I watch Fooly Cooly every year because it's short and easy and there's a lot of depth to it, but it's not going to enter that rotation, I don't think. But
no, we'll probably never revisit it again.
But the art, very impressive. And the fight scenes, impressive.
I mentioned it earlier because it just gives you such slice of life vibes, and then you're like, okay, these fight scenes and these cool weapon, like, it had no business. It just seemed so out of place, but
it struggled to find an identity. I feel like I feel like it was lumped into horror. There were maybe 3 episodes worth of that, so maybe 20% of the show. So I think the other 80% was your slice of life. So,
but
within the slice of life there was action. So it's just like,
but the opening. Overall Vitality, God tier. One of the most incredible openings.
Very cool.
I've ever seen.
I like the mixture of life, like actual photos, and the animation. I really appreciated that. I liked the egg cracking at the end of it.
Yeah. Oh. In my humble opinion, God tier opening for sure.
Good overall. Let us know what you think. Honestly, there is a lot to unpack here, because they left so many questions unanswered, or maybe my brain is so smooth that I just didn't pick up on it. But so there was a lot I have questions about. I'll rephrase it to that. But I don't know. The recaps really bring it down for me. And
just such a sudden,
the sense of confusion
from the midway point to the finish was, like you said, like you had mentioned, rushed, random at times.
I think they took too much liberty
plot
with the time.
Yeah.
I think if they really utilized their time well, and they were like, "This is a one-off. We're gonna make it awesome." We didn't have a recap episode. The OVA, half the OVA wasn't dedicated to another recap. I think they could have filled the plot holes, and I think it would have had the potential for some tremendous vitality. But some standard vitality here.
Yeah.
Your run-of-the-mill, your salaryman vitality.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, it's like I said, the opening was phenomenal though. The characters were great, but yeah, just the story in general is kind of the weakest point. So,
and I mean, especially for something in the realm of horror or slice of life, even though I don't think it meant to be, I think the story's where it should really shine. So that really took it down.
Yes. What are we drinking on here?
So Moonlight white tea. I enjoyed it. It has some I don't know, some subtle mango aspects to it once you get a couple infusions in.
Oh yeah.
White teas are always very palatable for me. I think they're easy to drink. They have a natural sweetness to them. I don't know. It all depends on the white tea. I really like the complexity of an oolong, but this white tea, I did enjoy. What are your thoughts?
I really liked it as well. Sweet, palatable, like you said.
Just easy to enjoy. White
Absolutely.
Tea. Good afternoon tea.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for joining us. This was our recap on Wonder Egg priorities. So tell us what you think. Tell us what you'd like to maybe see next. And until next time.
Until next time.